Okay, so a follow-up video on the Grateful Dead video, which I had so much fun making that, and but I also want to do a really good job because it means so much to me. But I just think I'm going to wing it in the spirit of the Grateful Dead. I thought I could sit down and spend 3 hours preparing another video, and that just seemed wrong in the spirit of the Dead, especially. And so, so this is probably a series of videos, Christianity, a Christian's view of the Grateful Dead. And, in the last video I talked about how they have many, even though they were not a Christian band, they did have a deeply spiritual intent and capacity. They really had an ability to get into a deeply prayerful state, meditative state, and play music from that place. And that because of that, and because of their innocence and lack of agenda and lack of ego, I'm not saying they were egoless or perfect, but they were really definitely willing to get up in front of 100,000 people and not have an agenda to show off or impress or do anything other than serve the divine, serve the music, and serve the people they were there to play for. And that made them unique. It made them unique. And I read a definition. I'm going to read it again. This is a definition for a word that doesn't exist, but I might have come up with a word or two to try. Harmonicalathos is one word we could use. And another one is divine flux. And it's that quality of looseness and randomness that allows the divine power to organize and orchestrate within a complex structure. And that's what the Grateful Dead had. They had a looseness that allowed for, since God was influencing every single member of the band, and since there was enough looseness for the divine power to orchestrate them to some degree or another, because of that, many little miracles happened of improvisation. And I guess the great miracle is just the overall energy that would come through them as they did this. You're in a flow state. You're flying by the seat of your pants in a lot of ways because you're not following a script. You're in front of 100,000 people. It is said that the Grateful Dead didn't have their set lists worked up until they got on stage. Now, they knew their music well, but they had 70 hours of music that they could play nonstop without repeating the same song twice. That's a lot of music. And, so just imagine you had to prepare something for 100,000 people, play music for them. What's the likelihood you would have the courage to get up on stage and fly by the seat of your pants like that? 40,000 people, some of their shows, 40,000 people. That's a lot of courage. And since this is a Christian channel and I'm a Christian spiritual director, how do I view that from a Christian lens? And well, one thing I could say is that takes a lot of faith. Faith and surrender also. One of the things they spoke about a lot is just being unable to control it, being unable to make it happen. They could show up best they could for it to happen, but they said they did not have control over the kind of power, how much power came through them. It wasn't something they could wield or make happen. So now you're in front of 50,000 people, 70,000 people, and they've all come to hear you play, and they want you to blow their minds. They want you just to blow their mind. And you are not even in control. So you might have been able to, if you were a different band, you might be able to work out some tricks that work no matter what. And, some guitar licks and some solos that you repeat every time the same way, and they just work. But they didn't do that. They said, no, we don't want to do that. So now they've got to trust that this power is going to come through them, that their connection with the audience is going to happen, this flow state's going to happen, and this power is going to come through. And they know it won't come through extremely powerful every time. Bill Graham said at the peak of their capacity as a band, this could be a misquote. I think he said there were 2 shows that were pretty good, 1 show that was really good, and 2 shows that would just take you into transcendence at their peak. That's what they were able to do. So only twice out of 5 was it just going to blow people's minds. And 2 shows were just going to be pretty good shows. And then 1 show was going to be, in the middle there, between mind-blowing and just okay. And they also had some off nights. They had nights where they weren't good. They had nights where it wouldn't come together. And they played poorly. And that's the price you pay to be a channel for the divine. You can't rehearse it and control it and manipulate it. It's not something you get to wield. It's something that comes through you. And they knew that. And I think that takes faith. I think that takes a lot of faith. I think it demonstrates that the band had a lot of faith. Because, and I know just as a spiritual teacher that I've got to prepare classes and, and I used to have a ton of nerves. I would say I still feel an intensity around doing it every time because I feel a responsibility to do a good job. But I used to have a lot of nerves around it. But that was when I was more mature, and it was about me. I wanted to make it. I wanted it to be powerful, so I looked good, right? And powerful meant a certain thing, and that's another sort of thing with the dead I would want to talk about. But I want to reference Taoism. There's a word in Taoism, te, day. And it's the power of being small. And it's the power of subtlety and smallness. And, in our American culture, it's like Jerry Garcia joked one time, like, on this planet, louder is better. And he was kind of making fun of it. Because, just louder, more distortion on that guitar, cram as many notes as you can in, hit that string, man, hard, and that's power. But there's actually a lot of kinds of power. And about half of Christianity is the power of dying, the power of surrendering, the power of losing, the power of humility, the power of smallness, powerlessness, weakness, and brokenness. Half of the Christian message is not triumphant. And I would say it's the root half. If Christianity is a tree, the roots of that tree are dying, smallness, humility, brokenness, surrender, and defeat. That's the roots. And it's because we're in a fallen world, it's because we're in a world where ego reigns. It's because we're in a world where self reigns, where self-aggrandizement, where everything's built on trying to build the self up. So, imagine being up in front of 50,000 people and not building the self up. Imagine being able to do that. Imagine being able to really want to be a servant. And, and if you're doing a really good job, you're doing it as a form of service to the people. Not, it's like we talked about this last video, but you could play the same guitar lick. Now it's instead of 2 bands as it was in the last video. Let's say now it's 1 person. They could play basically a similar or the same guitar lick in 2 different shows. And if in one of the shows they were showing off, it was all about needing to look good to someone in the crowd, or there's someone important there, there's some great musicians there, and now I got to make sure they think I'm something. If that is the motive, almost no power could come through that musician. Almost none. It would be just very difficult for any real power to come through that person, because they're serving the self. And on the surface, you wouldn't notice, and people that are not in tune probably wouldn't notice. But people that are listening with their spirits, they would notice. If they didn't notice in that moment, they would notice over the long haul if the person kept doing it that way. Even if it didn't show on their face, even if they were good at hiding it, it would show energetically. And And if that same person was able to sidestep that and come in genuinely thinking, man, I want to be a channel for God's power. I want to serve the music, serve my fellow band members. I want to serve the listener. And if they were coming from that place, then power could and would come through them. Sometimes extremely subtly and sometimes really powerfully. But it would, and that's the dead, they had enough of that for it to happen. And I wanted to talk about how that is faithful, how that is very much like Christian faith. And, the Grateful Dead, so they get up on stage, they don't have a set list prepared necessarily. It's a little murky what they did or didn't have prepared, but it certainly wasn't set in stone. But also, exactly how they were going to play what they played wasn't set in stone. Lots of room there. And there's a scripture, it's one of my favorite scriptures of all time, one of my favorite statements of Jesus of all time. I just love it. It makes me sigh, a deep sigh of relief and comfort. And I wanted to read it to you and see if you can't see how, even though the Grateful Dead was not a Christian band, how they were emulating this principle quite well, radically even. So, and this is Jesus, just the New Testament. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. I'm going to read that one more time. The wind blows wherever it pleases. You hear its sound, but you cannot tell where it comes from or where it is going. So it is with everyone born of the Spirit. And, the wind, breath, wind, that's all Holy Spirit. So that's the power of God we most associate with when we feel energies come over us. You feel the power of the Holy Spirit come over you. It blows through you. Some people that have had radical awakenings with it have literally heard the sound of rushing wind while it's happening. That's mentioned in scriptures, but it's also happened to people in regular life. And it does. It blows through you and it moves you. And if that isn't an exact description of what the Grateful Dead were doing, I don't know what is. If that isn't Christian, even though they weren't Christian, and I'm not trying to make that case, I don't want to offend Christians or deadheads. They're not Christian, I know that. But I'm trying to talk about similarities here between the Christian tradition and what the Grateful Dead were doing, because it's been so powerful for me spiritually, the music. That is so Christian. I can't believe it. Jesus tells his disciples at one point to go and don't bring money and don't bring an extra tunic and don't bring a staff and don't decide where you're going to go before you go. He tells them to go out and be led by the Spirit. Like, be led by the Spirit. And that's something that I learned first from the Grateful Dead and then found in Scripture, and which, canonized it in my heart, obviously. And really have tried to emulate best I can. Try to really live from that place where your actions are moved by the Holy Spirit, and with a humility, though, of knowing that you can't tell when you are or when you're not for sure. That's something Jerry Garcia said. Because they talk about this stuff. People ask about this, and one of the things he said was that he can't tell by how it feels on stage how well they're playing. So he might feel on fire one night, feel like it's just amazing, just all this power, and then the recording is mediocre. And then on another night he might feel as if he was doing poorly, the band was doing poorly, didn't seem to be gelling, and then the recording will be amazing. And I think that has a lot to do with this scripture about the wind blowing where it will, and you don't know where it's come from or where it's going. And that's how it is for people born of the Spirit. You can't tell where they're coming from, and you can't tell where they're going. And I would add also that they can't either. You know, it's a need to know basis. You know, when you're living a spiritual life and trying to do things spiritually, you're operating on a need to know basis. You're not given, you might get a vision now and then. I know people that get visions every now and then, and the Christian advice on that is, don't assume it came from God. Don't assume it came from the devil. Don't assume it came from your own mind. Don't assume anything. Just take it kind of with a grain of salt. If it came from God, it will come to pass, and you don't need to focus on it for it to happen. And if it didn't come from God, the only way it can wreck your life is if you focus on it and try to make it happen. So there's a deep humility built in there, and I heard that humility from Jerry Garcia when he spoke about, just not being able to control it and not even being able to tell for sure when it was happening and when it wasn't, based on how he felt. And that's wisdom. There's so much wisdom there. So this video, I thought, faith. Let's talk about faith. And they have another lyric that says, "Gone are the days we stopped to decide where we should go. We just ride." And that's so deeply Christian also. I mean, Paul talks about, there's scriptures that say, look, you don't make plans and think tomorrow I'll do such and such a thing and then this and this. I think Jesus said this. You fool. Don't you know that tonight your soul may be required of you? So it's this notion that there is God. God knows you and loves you. God is in connection with you. And how arrogant to plan out a life without referencing that power as lead in, I wouldn't say planning, as lead in the living of life. Planning, a little bit of planning, it's okay, but if you're living by the Spirit, you wouldn't make too definite of plans, because then you would have to be assuming you're on a direct verbal communication level with Jesus, and every time you ask a question, you're getting direct, reliable answers from Jesus. So then you could plan your life because you just have this perfect connection, but then you'd be arrogant and certainly missing the boat. So then it's this need to know basis thing where it's like you're given the information you need when you need it, and honestly, the more advanced you get on the path, the less you're given because you don't need it. You've learned to trust. Another lyric by the Grateful Dead that is perfect for this is, some folks trust in reason, others trust in might. I don't trust in nothing, but I know it'll come out right. That's powerful. Of course, I trust in God, but I don't trust in God's sending me dreams, visions, signs, making me so wise that I just know everything and know what to do. I trust in none of that. None of that. I trust in God to get through to me in spite of my intuition, in spite of my intelligence, such as it may be, in spite of my faithfulness, all these wavering qualities I have that are, a mismatch and a hodgepodge of strapped together capacities that are not coherent enough to do anything amazing. But I trust God to lead me in spite of the fact that I don't know the way. And in fact, Christianity teaches this. It's a deep, John of the Cross had a deep spiritual principle that he said the way to come into union with God is like a blind beggar. You don't know the way, and you don't have what it takes to get there. And then it's God who must lead you and provide you with what you need. And that is that also, all of these that I'm talking about is a pretty good description of what the Grateful Dead were up to when they got on stage to play. I'm not saying they lived perfect lives. I mean, there's all kinds of criticisms you could make everywhere on that. Don't care. I understand that. But I'm talking about what they brought to the world through their music, and they did this. And they did it so well and so beautifully. So I'm going to do one more song today. This will be a way shorter video. I just had fun with the one from yesterday, and I woke up kind of inspired about it. So I thought I'd do a little follow-up video. And I want to read some lyrics. So last video, I played a portion of a song called Franklin's Tower. And it was that song about a mythology. It's a mythology. And the mythology is a tower that is in the desert where there's sandstorms that are so severe people lose their way. So there's this tower in the desert with a bell, a giant bell at the top, and a child rings that bell when there's a storm like that so people can find their way. But it's really a mythology about God, salvation. Remember, I'm not saying they're a Christian band, so it's like some, in one book on the Grateful Dead lyrics that I read, it said some unnamed brand of salvation. But still, salvation. That there's, a child ringing a bell, right? So much rich meaning there. So, and then I pulled that particular song that I played out of an album called Without a Net. And it's actually part of a suite of 3 sort of songs, which is Help Is On the Way, Slipknot, then Franklin's Tower. And they flow into one. It's just one long stretch of music. And there's some rules against playing entire songs on YouTube, so I'm not going to do it. Although I bet I could get the Grateful Dead's permission. They're so cool, but you'd have to reach out and do all. I don't know how to do that, and I won't do it. But I wanted to read the Help Is On the Way lyrics. So we talked about the lyrics yesterday of the Grateful Dead and how, if all of what I've said was true, so they're humble enough, they've got this rich musical history they're pulling from, the music is beautiful, and it's loose enough for this divine power to orchestrate through it, all of that would be frustrated and meaningless if in the end the lyrics were sexualized or materialized or, locked into cultural wars, or, if the lyrics were also not transcendent, if the lyrics also couldn't be dropped into any soul on earth and have them get a personal meaning out of it, if they weren't broad enough, if the poetry wasn't perfect enough to suggest deep meaning without defining it in a specific way for people, then the band wouldn't have been what it was. But the lyrics are that good. So the musical vehicle is there, and then the lyrics are equal to the musical vehicle. And someone mentioned that in the comment section in the first video, and I intend to go back and respond because he's just so right. The lyrics are, I read lyrics in the last video, and people wrote in and said, geez, those are amazing lyrics. And what I want to write when I do respond, I want to say, yeah, and they're just no big deal. They have 100 songs like that. And that's one of the reasons when you're listening to the Dead over the years that you just end up grateful, because your soul's actually being fed by meaning and truth in a way that is so open and broad that it can lock into your own personal interpretation. It's just high-level poetry. It's so good. And so this is the lyrics for a song called Help Is On the Way. And I'm gonna read the lyrics, and then I'm going to pause it or stop, and then I'm going to play the song because I want you to hear it, because the way they put it to music is also quite amazing. And when Jerry says help is on the way, the crowd will roar. There's a response of celebration and cheering and joy. And I mean, look, man, we're singing about salvation. We're singing about truth and love. And you've got, the secular world has come to see a concert and they're cheering on truth. It's special. It's so special. They're not cheering on, I don't want to knock too much stuff, but they could be at another concert cheering on sex or money or power or fame or all kinds of just reptilian brain, low-level dopamine hits, that ultimately degrade humanity and don't bring humanity up. But here, You know, 70,000 people at a Dead show, and "Help is on the way" is sung. You wait till you hear the lyrics that come before it. "Help is on the way" is sung, and people are cheering. And there's just something special about that, man. When you're in it, when you feel that, and I felt it on the CD first. I didn't have to be at a show. It's nice to know that, but it's right on the CD. It's right on the, it's there. It's in the song. The power is there, and people are cheering on truth. Truth. I mean, that's, you know, much is being said today about the crisis of meaning that a post-Christian world, and I'm not even preaching Christianity at this moment, just a world that lost religion and has no replacement. And there are many scholars that I really love who are atheists, who are saying it's the first time in history, in hundreds of thousands of years, where humanity has been completely unmoored. No, not hundreds of thousands of years. It's their first time in our species history. Try to be technically correct. I don't have ability to edit, so when I make a mistake, it's there for life. The atheist scholars are saying that this is the first time in our species history where we have been unhooked unhooked collectively from deep meaning we can all agree upon and celebrate. And that first time in our history where we don't have ritual and communities collecting to celebrate our deepest truths, like honesty and integrity and faithfulness and truthfulness, and, you know, obviously love and self-sacrifice. And we've always as a people had this. Then the Industrial Revolution, the Enlightenment, and the Scientific Revolution has created this sort of rift where people have, you know, thrown the baby out with the bathwater. We've lost some purpose and meaning. And you see it everywhere. You see it in the nihilism, in the anger, in the division, in the conspiracy theories abounding, and you see it in tribalism, because once we don't have deep meaning to plug into, then we just start plugging in to get our meaning wherever we can get it. And some of those places can actually be anti-meaning. You know, some of those forms that we plug into for meaning can actually be subversive. Certainly tribalism is subversive. My tribe versus your tribe. When have we been more divided as a people right now? We have maybe, but it's just incredible how divided we are. And I don't want to pick sides. I just want to say, look how divided we are. This isn't good. We've lost our unifying principles. So at a Dead show, when you hear everyone cheer, when Jerry says, "Help is on the way," after these other lyrics, which are just crazy, there's a joy in that. You know, I don't know these people. There's a doctor over here, a lawyer over here. There's a mayor back there. There's a homeless dude over here. People following the dead in buses over here. You know, every mix of society you can imagine is there. You know, Silicon Valley guy over there, woman, you know, everything you can imagine is there. And yet, we're cheering on something. And really quick before I play this, I want to mention another thing that would get cheered on. Sometimes just with amazing exuberance and force, cheered on when they would forget the lyrics. When Jerry would sing the wrong lyrics, or Bob Weir would sing when he shouldn't, and then, you know, and people would just erupt with joy. Why? Because that is the cost of flying by the seat of your pants. That is the cost of being in a transcendent state of consciousness while playing, where you can't just stay in your left linear brain and know exactly when to come in. That is cheered as, I think, this is just my take, but I think that is cheered on because it is the only way, it is the natural result, If you're going to live by the Spirit, come in with no plan and fly by the seat of your pants, man, without ego and not stuck in your left controlling brain, but out in these transcendent states, there is a cost to that. And sometimes you're going to flub the lyrics and play the wrong notes. There's no way around it. And so I feel like that is celebrated as a high point sometimes. Just the roars that would come, and I would be a part of it, yeah. And I later thought, why? Why are we cheering that? And that's what I thought about, and I thought, that's why. We're cheering that because there is no other way if you're going to try to not be in control. If you're going to let God do something through you, man, the Spirit, whatever you want to call it, if you're going to let that come through you, there is no other way. You're going to make mistakes. You have to, because the only way to be perfect is to be dead inside and do something exactly how you said it has to be every time. And that takes, courage on their part, clearly, and faith, as I've said. But it also takes a community that is willing to embrace that ethos, that harmonical ethos, a collective understanding that we're here to participate in a miracle. We're here to participate in a miracle on some level, a real miracle, a genuine miracle. Okay, so here are the lyrics to this song. Paradise waits on the crest of a wave, her angels in flames. She has no pain. Like a child, she is pure. She is not to blame. Poised for flight, wings spread bright. Spring from night into the sun. Don't stop to run. She can fly like a lie. She can't be outdone. Tell me the cost. I can pay. Let me go. Tell me love is not lost. Sell everything. Without love day to day, insanity's king. I will pay day by day. Anyway, lock, bolt, and key. Crippled but free. I was blind all the time I was learning to see. Help is on the way. Well, I know only this, I've got you today. Don't fly away, 'cause I love what I love and I want it that way. I will stay one more day. Like I say, honey, it's you. Making it two. Without love in the dream, it will never come true. That's lyrics. And we'll read it one more time at the risk of belaboring the point, but I want to read it again. And then I'll play this section. And this is going to be a bit of a longer section, so just settle in. If you're not really into music, just know that your computer speakers are not going to convey it. Try to put in some headphones or a Bose speaker, a little computer Bose speaker or something. It matters. Quality music, it matters that you can hear the bass, that you can hear the interaction and interplay of the instruments, and also just know that I'm technologically dense. I have no skills. So what I'm doing is I have a Marshall speaker here. It's just a small little but really high quality Marshall speaker. I have my Blue Yeti mic, this mic, just placed in front of it. There's a drop in sound quality doing it this way, but it's the only way I have. But I've done a ton of test runs, and it's coming through quite well. If you're on decent speakers, you'll hear it. Okay, so I'm going to read these lyrics one more time. Paradise waits. On the crest of a wave, her angels in flames. She has no pain. Like a child, she is pure. She is not to blame. poised for flight, wings spread bright, spring from night into the sun. Don't stop to run. She can fly like a lie. She can't be outdone. Tell me the cost. I can pay. Let me go. Tell me love is not lost. Sell everything. Without love day to day, insanity's king. I will pay day by day. Anyway, lock, bolt, and key. Crippled but free. I was blind all the time I was learning to see. Help on the way. Well, I know only this. I've got you today. Don't fly away. 'Cause I love what I love and I want it that way. I will stay one more day. Like I say, honey, it's you. Making it two. Without love in the dream, it will never come true. Okay. So I'll play the song in a minute, but let me mention something about this. So there's Jesus, and he's this profound teacher, and he's healing people, and he's blowing people's minds. He's not speaking like the religious leaders of the day. He's speaking from a place of authority, and he's speaking simply, and he's not putting himself above others, and he's hanging out with, prostitutes and tax gatherers, who are embezzlers and untouchables, he's breaking all the rules, and he's blowing people's mind. He's got all this power, and someone comes up to him and says, "Teacher, what must I do to inherit the kingdom?" This is all paraphrased because I have no retentive memory. I read the scriptures, I can't quote them. I just don't have that. It's just not my ability. And I've found advantages to that and some disadvantages. But teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? And Jesus says, keep the commandments. And he lists off some of the commandments. And the man says, I have done this from my birth. What do I lack? So clearly he knows he doesn't have what Jesus has. But he's followed all the rules his whole life. Good rules, by the way. I'm not knocking that. No one is. Jesus says, go and sell all your possessions. Give it to the poor, and then come and follow me. And this man goes away very sad because he's a rich person and has many possessions. But there's speculation that he appears later in the Gospels naked, having sold even his clothing. We don't know that for sure. But there's speculation that he eventually did it, but he went away sad first. Sell everything. Tell me the cost. This is the Grateful Dead lyrics. Tell me the cost. I can pay. Let me go. Tell me love is not lost. That's this man in the story that comes to Jesus. I'm not saying they meant that, but then again, Hunter probably did mean that because he was so genius lyric writer. He pulled from Christian tradition heavily, but everywhere. But isn't that what this man said? Teacher, what must I do to inherit eternal life? Tell me the cost. I could pay. Let me go. Tell me love is not lost. Then this is all like Jesus talking. Sell everything. Without love, day to day, insanity is king. Okay. And then this lyric, crippled but free. I was blind all the time I was learning to see. I mean, if that doesn't sum up. I've been on the path, 25 years. That should make me more embarrassed and not proud. Embarrassed I can't show more for it, just so you know. But I've been on the path a long time. And if crippled but free, I was blind all the time I was learning to see, does not label where I am now and how it's always been, I don't know what does. I don't know what does. I'm free and I'm crippled and I'm blind and I can see. And isn't that just wisdom, man? isn't that just wisdom? And then help is on the way, and then everyone cheers it, and the next, I mean, come on, man. Then there's a musical interlude that to me sounds like an ascent. I've always thought Slipknot sounded like, and felt like, and was a lot like the way the journey to union with God looks and feels. I've always thought that. It ascends up and comes back down, but a little higher. And it ascends up and comes back down, but a little higher than where it began. And it ascends up and comes back down, and then it hits a place of transcendence musically that is so incredible. And then it lands again. It's like a union with God, and then it lands with its feet on the ground, but so different. It's so clean and so pure and so beautiful. And I mean, I can't escape that being a musical description of union with God, of the ascent to union with God. I can't escape that. I think that's what it is. I mean, I can't speak for the Grateful Dead, obviously, and they probably disagree, and that's okay. But Robert Hunter, they would all say, but you get what you get out of it. And that's what I got out of it. So I want to play a section here this time, maybe 8 minutes. So just kick back, man, and listen. I'm going to play this song, Help Us on the Way, and then I'm going to let it go all the way to Slipknot. And then I'm going to let it just flow for just a second into Franklin's Tower, which we heard a big chunk of yesterday. But I want to let it flow so you can hear how that is. And the last thing I want to say, and I mean, I'm thinking of a couple people that might want to kick me for picking Without a Net to do this with. Without a Net is, I think, the Grateful Dead at their loosest in some ways. Very complex. It's 91, 92, so I think it's their more complete and full expression of their songs. It's my favorite era. When they're on fire in this era, it's my favorite era of all time. And this Without a Net is really loose, but it's loose enough that, so I have a band. Well, we're in a band, and there's 2 drummers in the band. One of them I spoke about in the other video about how innocent and good he is, and you can feel that goodness. And the other one is a different kind of guy, and he's really taken the Dead to heart deeply. Just he's as much of a Deadhead as me. He's in for life, and he's grateful for life about it. And he told me that Without a Net is one of his favorite albums now, but at first it really bugged him because it's so loose. So probably some people would say, Clint, why'd you have to pick Without a Net to do this with? But I'm just going to do it anyway because I love it so much. So we'll play it. We'll play it right now. This is off the album Without a Net. This is Help Is on the Way, and then the musical interlude called Slipknot. If you want to understand the Dead, listen. Just listen. Like, actually listen to the music. And don't get in a hurry for it to end, and because you're not present then. Remember, it's not entertainment. It is, but it's not. It's not entertainment. It's interaction. This music demands something of you, and it takes you somewhere. But you got to go. So I would say just try to relax and listen, and let's see what happens. Okay, hold on. I'm going to pause it. Bluetooth isn't working. All right, here we go. Paradise waits on the crest of a wave. Okay, so that's now they've gone into Franklin's Tower. So that's the piece, that's the musical piece. If you want to hear that whole ascent, Help Is on the Way, Slipknot, Franklin's Tower in its entirety on really good speakers at home, just, look up on Amazon or wherever you get your music, even YouTube has it. It's the album without a net. And it's just live stuff. It's not it's not a studio album, obviously. But so there it is. So Help Is on the Way, you heard those lyrics. Slipknot, which, if you're new, that might not have, it takes a while, man. That's it's not very complex, but it is in another way. It's so rich, and you got to hear it a few times to hear it. It's, classical music is like that. It's so complex that you don't know what you've heard until you've heard it 4 or 5 times, and then the meaning, the flow, the composition, the phrasing, it all starts to make sense, and that's how it is with this. But imagine people, not necessarily religious people, just imagine 70,000 people cheering on lyrics like that and music like that, and culminating in Franklin's Tower, which is about an unnamed brand of salvation. Imagine that being what people are celebrating, and you've got an idea of what the Grateful Dead were about. And why it was so powerful for people, because it was quasi-religious, it's spiritual, and people will say that, you don't know their beliefs. You don't know what they think about God or if they believe in God, but the majority of people that are really into the Grateful Dead will say it's a spiritual experience for them. That's art. That's what life should be about. That's what we should be creating. Something meaningful. So okay, that's probably the end of this video. I'm going to do a bunch of these. I think I'll make a third one. This will be number 2, Christianity and the Grateful Dead, whatever I titled it. I don't remember. I'll make 3 of those as an introduction, probably one more. And then I'm just going to do a series of, videos, shorter ones on particular songs. And I'll leave you with this thought. I had a friend that was a Rastafarian, and he was dedicated. He has studied with genuine Rastafarians, and he chanted the scriptures, for a significant period of time a day. He was truly devoted and really into reggae, obviously, and really into Bob Marley and other reggae also, of course. And I told him, because he was telling me how powerful the music is, which I knew because in the last video I said there was a band I was forgetting to mention. It was Bob Marley, because the lyrics are incredible, totally different kind of band, but it survived my spiritual awakening also, that band. Because there's so much joy and love in it. But I told him the Dead is like that too, but in a different way, and try and hear it. And at first he said, "Dude, I'm not getting it. I don't understand." And I said, "I know it. It's so different than what you're used to, and just keep giving it a shot." And we were friends, and he respected my spirituality, and I respected his. So there was a mutual respect. So he was willing to put away his prejudice and sit with the Dead for a few months and see. I don't know if he texted me or called me. I think it was a phone call, and he said, "Hey man, I get it now." He said, you told me the Dead had, was about God, and I couldn't see it. He said, I couldn't see it. And he said, here's what I think. He said, Bob Marley is a band singing about God to me. He said, the Grateful Dead is a band where God is singing to us about life. And I'll get in, I thought that was a powerful observation. And it framed things for me forever, in a way. Because I've played some songs with some pretty directly spiritual lyrics. But there's a lot of songs that are just about life, about ruffians, about, the next one I'm going to do is a song called Loser, off of Dead Set, an album called Dead Set. I have a ton of live stuff to you guys, but I'm just going to go easily accessible stuff, so the stuff I cover mostly, people will be able to go check it out for themselves. If all you Deadheads are listening, of course I know about all their live stuff that isn't an album, but I'm just trying to make it accessible for people. I'm going to do, the next video I do is going to be on Loser, which is you're transported back in time, man, to Western times, early Western American civilization, and it's just a song about a card player. And it's called Loser, and it's just so powerful. And it's, if you're Christian and you're thinking, well, I want you to think of this if you're Christian and you follow these series of videos. Imagine the criticism the Bible gets by atheists who attack it because there's all this nefarious activity that happens all through the Old Testament. And, we know there's all these deep lessons being played out, in these characters. But people come from the outside and say, well, you say, we shouldn't watch rated R movies, but some of the Old Testament is rated R. And, there's these wars that go on because the Old Testament is filled with ruffians and villains and, just scoundrels, and some of them God chooses anyway. And, it's like, it's a very interesting picture that is painted about God working through human beings through history. Well, the Grateful Dead, a lot of their songs do seem to be in that sort of genre, where it's like, this song's just about a card player, gambler. And, gambling's bad. I mean, people could go down a road. But it's a little like the Old Testament. I really want to say that. I'm not saying it's the same, of course, man. For me, the Bible is inspired, by God and in a unique way. But in another way, so many of these songs that are just about regular life have wisdom built into them if you're listening. And I think it was intentional. The lyricist certainly had that kind of wisdom and insight and intelligence and beauty in him, so that the lyrics are rich and meaningful. So, okay, thanks for watching this video. It's another one. It went to an hour long. I sure appreciate all the comments below. I'll try to respond to some of them on the first video. It was so neat that people found that who weren't a part of my channel. This is a Christian channel, really. And people have found it. I didn't realize that would happen because I don't have any followers, or, it's not like, I didn't think the video would show up in anyone's feed to find, actually. I thought it would just be people from the center. But this is really fun and neat, and I'll just do a series of them. I'm probably going to do, unless something changes, my intention is to do them on a ton of songs. And shorter videos, of course. Okay, thanks for watching, and everybody, I sure appreciate it.